Are you prepared for this week's topic? It might get under your skin.
Ooh.
I'm Vince.
I'm Claire.
And this is
Friends of Legend.
Welcome to Friends of Legend, a podcast where we encourage you to lay down your torches and pitchforks and instead pick up a mythical pal.
Pick up, but don't shake and don't squeeze.
Yeah, maybe also ask for permission.
Always a good idea.
And also some of them are too big to pick up, but I digress! This week's topic was actually suggested to us by a good friend of ours named James. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much, James. And if you have an idea of your own that you want to send in, you can do that at friendsoflegend@gmail.com.
That's right, we love suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
So, the subject of this week's discussion is the Yee Naaldlooshii. Now, had you heard of the Yee Naaldlooshii before?
No, sir, I cannot say that I have.
Well, that would be the Navajo name for it, but you might know it by the more common name of Skinwalker.
I feel like I may have heard Skinwalker in scary stories or something like that.
So this subject is quite different from a lot of our others. So the Yee Naaldlooshii is not a creature, but instead a human that taps into a very potent source of power. Skinwalkers are people of Navajo culture who use magic to turn into or possess animals or other humans.
Fascinating. Is this some sort of punishment for the animals or humans?
It's not a punishment, but the person who decides to become a Yee Naaldlooshii is using magic almost exclusively for evil, and they have to do some pretty bad things to get this power.
Oh, jeepers.
And we'll go into that a little later, but essentially it is a type of witch that uses bad magic to possess other animals or other people, occasionally turning into animals themselves.
Now, is this something exclusive to the Navajo tribe?
I'm pretty sure it is. I saw one source that said that Hopi and Apache culture had mentions of this as well, but the Yee Naaldlooshii itself is a Navajo word. It means one who walks on all fours.
Oh, okay.
So the appearance of a Yee Naaldlooshii is difficult to say, because to the untrained eye, it could be any person of Navajo culture that you're looking at.
Right, but they don't have any, red eyes or any evil auras around them?
Not while they're a person. Now, there is a pretty prevalent image, and I don't know how accurately it depicts a skinwalker, but it's of almost like a werewolf-looking person. They're wearing a coyote pelt on their head, and they have big, muscular, strong arms that are covered in thick fur with long claws. Their canines are pronounced, they have hair on their feet, and they're bent over like they're about to pounce.
Yeah.
It seems a little cartoonish, especially since all the rest of the sources indicated that Skinwalker is a person at their core.
Yeah.
However, when they take the form of an animal, that animal is many times larger than what you typically see.
A dire form.
Yes. That's actually a really great way of putting it.
Thank you.
So, typically they'll take the form of predatory mammals. Most common I saw were coyotes and wolves, but also bears, foxes, and cougars.
Something that's going to be menacing for their prey, I'm sure.
Definitely. Something that's going to afford them great speed or power or intimidation.
Yeah.
And another way you can tell a Yee Naaldlooshii an animal form apart from the common animal is that its eyes will look a lot more human. I imagine what that means is that you can see a lot more of the whites of the eyes, but also when light's reflected off of their eyes in animal form, it reflects red.
Yeah, that sounds just about as creepy as I was picturing.
It's pretty terrifying, definitely. I saw a lot of unsettling images. A Yee Naaldlooshii can either be a man or a woman, because again, it's about the power that they learn and abuse rather than anything they're born with. However, it seems like the vast majority of them are male.
Have you seen any children Yee Naaldlooshii?
I don't think a child can be a Yee Naaldlooshii because, and I'll get into this a little later, the The path of becoming a Yee Naaldlooshii is not for the faint of heart. Think like the creation of a Horcrux.
I was thinking the same thing.
It is equivalent to that.
It deals in soul manipulation.
In a manner. As we move on to the behavior, there is something that I want to preface with. This is a topic that is rather sensitive. There have been other times this being has been brought up and included in fictions or in talks of mythology and cultural beliefs, and it can be tricky to talk about because I've seen a lot of references from Navajo people today speaking about this, that they don't even really talk about the Yee Naaldlooshii with each other. It's
taboo?
I think taboo is a close enough word to it, but they also don't want to share this with outsiders as well. So the information we have is limited, and the information that I was able to get might be inaccurate. I want to do this topic because A, our friend suggested it, and B, I would like to be able to do my best, but I'm working with limited and perhaps fallacious material. And I hope that anyone who is listening to this podcast that does have a more intimate knowledge of the nature of the Yee Naaldlooshii will forgive me as I try to go through this.
Well, not only that, but you're more than welcome to write into us and correct us, and we would be happy to relay that information on the show.
Absolutely, definitely. We'd love to make a Friends of Legend errata. So again, a Yee Naaldlooshii is a person who is using the kind of magic and teachings that one would learn in becoming a medical practitioner in a Navajo community. But instead of using it to help and heal other people, they're using it for greedy or cruel or sadistic purposes.
What is the end game here?
Personal gain. It's always just selfish desire.
So you think that they're raiding villages and stealing treasures and...
I'll be going into the kind of things that the skinwalkers do with their power. But yes, there is a designation for anyone who uses these magical practices that are learned for malevolent purposes. And this term is Antinii. And I'm doing the best I can to pronounce these words. Please forgive me if I'm butchering them, but it roughly is equivalent to that of a witch.
Okay.
And not all Antinii are Yee Naaldlooshii, but the worst of them use their powers to be a skinwalker. So to become a Yee Naaldlooshii, you have to commit an act that is considered morally and culturally reprehensible. This is usually the killing of a family member. In the sources I read, most people looking to gain the powers of a Yee Naaldlooshii will kill their siblings.
Oh, so they do it intentionally for those powers.
Yes. So that's what I meant about it being equivalent to a Horcrux. You have to kill to gain this power.
Yeah, it's a very premeditated sort of thing.
Yes.
How awful.
It is pretty bad.
Is that the only way that you can get the power?
Well, again, like I said, it has to be some kind of morally or culturally reprehensible activity.
Right.
I didn't see any other specific references. The only specific references I saw were of killing family members. Once someone has committed this act and gained these powers, they can use them to take on the complete form of an animal or to gain just partial aspects of it. So, like, you can use these powers to have the strength of a bear without looking like a bear, or the agility of a fox, that kind of thing.
Sounds very D&D-y.
Yeah, it has kind of like a chaotic evil druid vibe.
Yeah.
If that's not putting it too plainly.
Well, you were mentioning that not only are they unusually large when they're in their animal form, but they might be wearing a pelt. And is that implying that there might be perhaps the head of one animal and the pelt of another, or the head of a human and the pelt of an animal?
So it's just clothing.
Yeah.
From what I saw, people of Navajo descent typically don't wear the pelt of predatory animals because of this association.
Oh, okay.
But Yee Naaldlooshii will, because it's like a symbol of power. As I had hinted at early on, they also have a power over humans. What I saw was that a skinwalker can possess someone by making eye contact with them, and they can briefly influence the actions of that person.
Oh no.
So, in some cases, if someone is behaving or saying things that they never would in normal circumstances, it might be because they are being influenced by Yee Naaldlooshii.
They're under the Imperious curse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing that they can do is they can mimic almost any human voice.
Oh, that's creepy.
And they'll do this to maybe make the sound of a crying child in the middle of the woods, make the sound of someone's loved one crying out for help.
Aww.
So they can draw the person away and hunt them.
Jeez, that's terrible.
It is. And this is not the only way they hunt. They'll also approach people's homes at night and they'll scratch on the doors, knock at the windows. Sometimes you'll look out the window and you'll see a brief flash of red eyes before they disappear. Sometimes they'll tap, tap, tap on the roof. Try to get someone to come out and look at what's happening so they can snatch them up.
I wonder how soon after a Yee Naaldlooshii invades a village, do the rest of the village just pack up and leave?
There are ways to try to protect against one. And again, it's not easy necessarily to identify who may be Yee Naaldlooshii because they look normal if they wanted to look normal.
Oh dear.
So the reasons that a skinwalker would hunt a person are varied. Most often, it's to sustain their own life. I saw some sources mention that a Yee Naaldlooshii can elongate their life by taking the unfinished life of the person they kill.
I've just stolen 1 year of your life away.
In other instances, they will take the person they kill back to a cave or other such hidden away area, and a bunch of Yee Naaldlooshii will gather together and they'll have a festival where they eat the person.
Oh no.
Another reason they'll hunt people is so that they can gain that person's wealth. If someone's amassed a large amount of desirable objects and the Yee Naaldlooshii sees that and they lust after it, then they will hunt that person down and take all their stuff.
Oof.
Lastly, they'll also hunt people because they can use different body parts for different things. A lot of the tools they make will be out of human bone. And also they'll gather the skin and hair, not only off of the dead, but off of the careless living who shed their hair and skin.
Oh, okay.
And they'll use it to make poisons or to cast curses.
Yeah, they're witches.
For that reason, I think a lot of people will be mindful of where their hair and their nails and their shed skin is laid, because they don't want to use against them. Yeah, it's a hard task. So in addition to all of these powers that I've mentioned, they also have a stunning resistance to many things. It's said that when near a skinwalker, guns will jam and blades will blunt.
Whoa.
So they're essentially unkillable by normal means.
Blunt the knives, jam the guns.
That is what Bilbo Baggins hates.
Yeah.
I saw a few sources that mentioned that if you dip your bullets in white ash and shoot for the head or the neck, that will harm a skinwalker. But that would take a lot of aim and a lot of forethought, and you might not have the time.
Right, because they come at night probably when you're sleeping. Do they only come at night?
Well, I imagine that they probably do the bulk of their hunting at night.
Also, that would probably be the best way for them to stay under the radar as much as possible.
Yeah.
From people they know.
Unless by day they're just using their powers to influence people to not pay attention to them.
Man, this is freaky.
Yeah, it was very troubling to read about all of this. So there are ways that you can avoid being beset by a Yee Naaldlooshii. Beset
is such a sweet little word that you like to use to make this all sound a little
It takes the teeth
lighter
out of being hunted for sport.
Yeah.
The way that many will try to avoid a Yee Naaldlooshii is by not talking about it. It's thought that if you say the name of a Yee Naaldlooshii, that it will draw its attention and its avarice upon you.
Oh no.
So maybe making this episode was a mistake for more reasons than one. But the people of Navajo descent that practice the medicine magic benevolently will have ways of laying down magical wards that will, in effect, block out a Yee Naaldlooshii's influence, so it won't come into the village. There are also ways to turn an individual Naaldlooshii directly if, like, you're out in the woods and you're being stalked by one. there are magics for that as well.
Okay.
Of course, I wasn't able to find the specifics of them.
Yeah.
That's something that I would imagine is a pretty guarded secret.
Mm-hmm.
Some more commonplace means of avoiding a Yee Naaldlooshii are to keep some juniper berries or some corn pollen.
Oh my, that's so specific.
On you. If you kind of, I don't know, keep them in your pocket, maybe rub yourself down. It'll be essentially like mosquito repellent.
I've got juniper berries right over there.
I don't know how powerful it is. I think it's more like if you're in a group of people and you've got juniper berries on you,
yeah,
the skinwalker's going to attack the other people first.
Oh, okay.
I don't like the taste of juniper. If if you're all alone, I don't know if that would do you much good.
Yeah, okay.
A much easier way to avoid them is to just stay out of the rural areas of the American Southwest.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I can't remember where exactly geographically the Navajo Nation is.
It's, I mean, the size of it's obviously changed over time, but the hunting grounds and the sighting radius of different Yee Naaldlooshii have been spotted in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Colorado. You know, the 4 states area,
So
Nevada,
safe.
West Texas.
Yeah.
We're safe because we live in suburbia.
Well, yeah.
But even then, I don't know if that's necessarily a hard block. But I digress.
Okay, here's what I'm thinking. You're saying that they mimic voices of, you know, potentially your loved ones. And well, this doesn't apply to babies crying, but so I just think that you and your family need to get together and come up with some kind of code word that you can shout when you're in serious trouble.
Yeah, like DuckTales.
Oh.
But if you are being chased by a Yee Naaldlooshii and you have this knowledge upon you, one way that you can stop yourself from being hunted down is by saying its true name.
Oh.
So if you know the name of the person that the skinwalker is, you can say that name, but also as soon as they hear that name, they're going to die.
Oh, jeez.
From what I was able to glean, it's because saying the name, their human given name, will remind that Yee Naaldlooshii that they were once human, and they'll begin to feel such shame
Oh my
in their
gosh.
actions that they'll just keel over.
Oh no.
Which reminded me a little bit of the Tarisk.
Yeah. How sad.
Except the Tarisk was just a big angry puppy, and this is a little more sinister.
A big deadly puppy is what this is.
Yes. Well, yes. So that's what I had to say about the behavior. Let's move on to modern representation. There are a lot of stories, including from like the last century, of people having close encounters with a skinwalker.
Oh dear.
Stories of someone driving on a lonely road in the Southwest and seeing an animal run unnaturally fast next to it, or glancing out of your cabin window to see a pair of red eyes staring back at you.
Buh.
So one of the most famous stories comes from a ranch in Utah where the ranch owner had reported several instances of his cattle being mutilated.
Aww. Why is it always the livestock, yo?
Well,
I know why. I mean, they're easy prey, but it's just sad.
It is sad. Those cows didn't do nothing wrong. He also would report that he'd see, red glowing eyes from over the hill, large animals that were immune to gunfire, that sort of thing.
Meh.
There were so many of these stories coming out of the place that it started to become known as Skinwalker Ranch. And nowadays, it's a hotbed for people looking to catch a glimpse of a Yee Naaldlooshii, UFOs, and other sort of beyond belief activity.
Now they're embracing the tourism.
Yeah. At first, it became this really freaky, surreal zone. And now it's like a caricature of what it is. It makes you feel like the person might not have been telling the truth at all about these.
Well, okay, so that could be the case. But I think I've seen enough Scooby-Doo to know that if you make a caricature of a creature that's haunting your land, like in Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, and then your town, or your ranch in this case, becomes kind of a fun little festive area for this otherworldly experience, then that creature's gonna come down on you with the wrath of Thor's hammer.
It's true. So here's hoping that no one who visits Skinwalker Ranch is visited by an actual Skinwalker.
I wonder if anyone confuses it for Skywalker Ranch.
Well, that would be a pretty disappointing downstairs mix-up. The Yee Naaldlooshii were also mentioned in an update of the Harry Potter universe in 2016.
Oh.
When one of those famous post-series updates that Claire loves so much.
I do not, for the record.
J.K. Rowling decided that she wanted to flesh out magic in North America, so she included the Skinwalker as a type of animagus. However, this drew a lot of negative attention, both from the readership and from people of Navajo descent, because it felt like appropriation and that it was very mishandled.
Gosh, I wish JK would just stop with the tweets already.
Yeah, she done jumped that shark.
Well, that's too bad. I hope that we're not doing the same thing with this episode. I don't think we are. I mean, I feel like we're, in a way, sort of paying homage to this culture that we don't hear enough about.
It's true. I'm doing my best to handle it respectfully, but in the end, we are not the right people to determine whether or not we are doing it a disservice or not.
Yeah, it's true.
So, by all means, if you felt like the way that we were handling this could have been better, let us know.
Yeah.
Another source of media that mentioned the Yee Naaldlooshii was the Dresden Files, which is a famous series of books about a wizard who I think lives in Chicago named Harry Dresden.
Oh.
The Yee Naaldlooshii come up as frequent antagonists in the books. They are much like they are in real life. They can transform into animals, possess people. They're very powerful and very malevolent. Some are so strong that one of the wizards in the series had to lead a Yee Naaldlooshii into a nuclear test site to defeat it.
Bah!
Yeah. Which would be pretty appropriate given that the nuclear test sites in the U.S. are located smack dab in Skinwalker country.
Skinwalker Ranch?
Yep. Lastly, something I wanted to mention is a Stephen King novel and later adapted HBO miniseries called The Outsider. I don't know if you remember me watching this a little while ago.
Kind of.
It's a story set, weirdly enough, in Georgia, though some events take place in other parts of the country. The being in the books, without spoiling too much, has a lot of qualities that are similar to a Skinwalker, though it's never explicitly called a Yee Naaldlooshii or a Skinwalker. It can possess people, mimic their voices, or turn into them. It seems to feed off of the unfinished lives of children.
Not to 50!
You love that reference, don't you? Boop, 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 boop. The books and the series paint a very chilling, haunting description of this being, which I feel is very appropriate for what a Yee Naaldlooshii is, even though, again, it was never explicitly called a Yee Naaldlooshii.
Yeah.
So let's talk about befriending one of these.
Sounds like an uphill battle.
This might be the first time that I would advocate for not trying to become friends with one.
Well, here's the thing. It's a very intentional process to become one, so they don't have to corrupt their souls.
That's true. A person who goes down this path is doing so because they want to be a bad person, and in doing so have irrevocably changed who they are.
Yeah. That's a bit different from a species of magical creature who has no choice. It's just born that way.
Absolutely. In all of the stories that I could see that came directly from Navajo culture, always ended either in the Skinwalker being killed, the Skinwalker killing the protagonist, or the Skinwalker being driven off by magic. There are no stories where the meeting of a Yee Naaldlooshii and a normal person ended amicably.
I see.
Perhaps the best you could get out of a Yee Naaldlooshii is a parasitic friendship, one where it is using your goodwill to further its own greed.
Yeah. Or a parasitic friendship in the other way, in that you know where it stashes its treasure, and you know that it's killing people, but you don't say anything because you want them to keep accruing more and more until you finally defeat it. That kind of sounds like a video game. Yeah,
that's a little too convenient. One thing I did see often mention, though, is that they are very social beings with each other.
Oh.
They will gather often to perform profane rituals, eat people, do even worse things to bodies.
Rave.
Yeah, rave. all the terrible things in this world.
Well, yikes.
So I suppose if you were that desperate, you could become one, but that is awful, and I wish that I hadn't said that because that's just awful.
Don't get any ideas, guys.
Yeah, I heartily recommend that you do not try to become a Yee Naaldlooshii.
No kidding.
So, with all that out of the way, I guess it's time for the friend rating. So if this is your first time listening, well, you picked a spicy meatball.
A spicy meatball that's gonna burn on the way out.
Ooh. Yes, all of that and more. But that being said, we have a 4-tier rating system that we use to describe how easy it is to become friends with all of these wonderful beings. The first is friend-shaped. This would be someone who would bake a pie for you. Think of something like a swan maiden.
Next up is cheeky friend. That's someone who's going to stick their finger in a pie and lick it, like an imp.
Next up from there is spicy friend. It's the kind of friend that would bake you a pie, but then bite your head off if you told him that it needed more sugar.
Ooh.
Something like Baba Yaga.
I wouldn't dare criticize her cooking.
No, not unless I wanted to become her cooking.
Lastly, we have not a friend yet. They're going to toss you in the oven and leave you in there until you're nice and ash. Until you're nice and ash.
Until you're nice and ash. Pikachu!
Think of a Greek sphinx.
So, given all of that, what is your rating for the Yee Naaldlooshii?
A definitive not a friend yet.
Yeah, I almost dare say not a friend ever.
Not a friend ever.
Sorry, but also not sorry, Yee Naaldlooshii. This is your bed and you must lie in it.
I don't feel that bad about this one because it is a human at the core.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bep.
Womp womp womp.
Try again in the next life.
But anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Friends of Legend. If you did, feel free to leave us a review or subscribe to our podcast on the podcast provider you use.
And if you want more Friends of Legend content, then you can find us at friendsoflegend.com. There you can see the whole episode catalog, as well as frequently asked questions and a way of contacting us.
We're also on social media. You can find our Facebook page and our Twitter page, where we will post extra content as well as give little hints on what the upcoming episode's creature is going to be.
And remember, guys, new episodes every Saturday, so stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed to us so you get notified.
That's right, and tell a friend. Thank you all again for listening, and remember, when it comes to Friends of Legend, charm them.
Do not harm them. Think of something like a banshee.
Next up is Spicy Friend. This is the kind of friend who would bake...
A banshee would not stick their finger in a pie. Holla at ya boy!
Cha-boy!